symbols of death in a chamber deep below the Capitol building. George Washington transformed into a god. Washington, D.C. landmarks and the seats of U.S. power aligned with the stars. Secret government research into the powers of the mind. Author Dan Brown has created a stir with these and other suggestions in his provocative fictional book set in Washington, D.C. Now, the secrets as we separate fact from fiction and go hunting the lost symbol. Washington, D.C., a city of secrets and intrigue, and the perfect backdrop for Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol. The book takes us through the underbelly of the city rarely seen and delves into a mysterious secret society.
I've read that particular fantasy played out in great detail, and it's nothing but fantasy, but it is prominent in the conspiracy community, and Dan Brown clearly has been reading in that particular library.
So motivated.
But is Brown telling us the truth? Or is his Washington just another fictional character? We'll explore the pages of The Lost Symbol to separate out fact from fiction. In the book, the U.S. Capitol building is at the center of an unfolding mystery. It's where the book's protagonist, Professor Robert Langdon, begins his quest and where we begin our examination. In the book, Langdon tells his students that the Capitol's design has roots in America's oldest and largest secret society, the Freemasons. Fact. A prominent Mason did play a pivotal role in the planning. The nation's first president, George Washington.
Washington really deserves more credit than I think he gets about the siting and the layout of Washington.
He approved the plans. He decided what plans they would use. He decided that the building should be in stone rather than in brick.
Another fact mentioned in the book is that the Capitol building's location was chosen by a Frenchman, city designer Major Pierre L'Enfant. That's also true.
I suppose the original plan is a hope that someday we would eclipse England in every respect, and that everything would begin there. But frankly, however, Washington, D.C. was mostly tobacco fields. And in fact, British diplomats got tropical pay for serving here. So it was considered a hardship post, I think, initially. And when L'Enfant stood out there trying to imagine what the city was going to look like, he called this hill a pedestal waiting for a monument. And while L'Enfant did not design the Capitol, he set aside the place for it, and Washington agreed that that was the place that the U.S. Capitol should be.
In the book, Professor Langdon surprised his students by telling them that President George Washington laid the Capitol building's cornerstone in a traditional Masonic ceremony. Again, the book is correct. On the morning of September 18, 1793, President Washington led a procession to the site. There, wearing an odd-looking apron, he directed the events of the day. Traditional Masonic items were then presented, like corn and vessels of oil and wine. And with that, the cornerstone of the nation's Capitol building was set. What's not in the book is the fact that today, the cornerstone is missing. The plaque is all that remains. Are the Masonic origins of the building being hidden?
Over the last decade or so, various folks who work in the Capitol have taken metal detectors down into the basement trying to find that metal plate that would indicate where the original cornerstone was. But they've never found the plate. And that leads to the best guess, which was that during the construction in 1960, when the whole east front of the Capitol was moved out, that they may have destroyed the original cornerstone, not realizing that that's where it was.
So perhaps there's no cover-up. But what about the other secrets Brown mentions in The Lost Symbol? Is there an architect of the Capitol who alone has unrestricted access to secret levels and hidden rooms? Yes.
There are about 500 rooms in the Capitol building, and very few people have seen the majority of them. The one person who has access to every room is the architect of the Capitol, because he's in charge of preserving and protecting that building.
In the book, the architect of the Capitol makes his way through a series of hidden underground passageways. Is that possible?
Because the image of the Capitol has become so fixed in everybody's minds as to what the U.S. Capitol should look like, they couldn't do anything that would change the exterior of the Capitol building. And so the only thing to do was to go underground. It's 4 stories underground. So 4 stories under the spot where George Washington laid the cornerstone, there's office space for the Senate and for the House, and then there's a huge visitor center.
The book also describes a series of tunnels connecting the Capitol with surrounding buildings. Do they really exist? And for what purpose?
There is a tunnel that links the visitor center to the Jefferson Building, which is the main building of the Library of Congress across the street.
But are there other, more secretive tunnels?
There are other tunnels that run under the Capitol, are steam tunnels, water tunnels, the utilities run through, and then walkways to get from building to building, and from the 3 Senate office buildings and from one of the House office buildings, there's a separate subway system that links the Capitol to the office buildings.
In the book, Brown's symbologist comes to the Capitol building to give a speech, but instead makes a startling discovery: a severed human hand. Langdon describes how this hand, adorned with a series of symbolic tattoos, resembles the legendary Hand of Mysteries, a type of invitation or key to understanding ancient wisdom. Such an icon does exist. Its origins are said to go back to the biblical days of King Solomon, when a hand was extended to each newcomer as they entered his temple of wisdom. Legend also says the hand held the power to raise the dead, if you understood its cryptic tattoos. But does the hand have anything to do with the Masons? Or is it just a sick, clever device used by the book's villain?
The Hand of Mystery was bizarre. I saw no relation between the Hand of Mystery and Masonic ritual that I've read, Masonic ritual as I understand it. It was, poetic license.
In the book, it's what the hand is pointing at that is truly perplexing: the mural inside the Capitol dome. Italian artist Constantino Brumidi painted the fresco in 1865. It's known as the Apotheosis of Washington. It features a godlike George Washington surrounded by classical figures, with goddess freedom to his left and liberty to his right. Between the 2 goddesses are 13 maidens with 13 stars above them, representing the 13 colonies. Among these goddesses are scientists of that time, including Benjamin Franklin, gaining wisdom from the gods. A U.S. president is transforming into a god. Was that the original intention of the painting? Or does the book offer its own interpretation?
Dan Brown himself takes the painting as a symbol of the belief of human potential. He just kind of imposes his own meaning on it to suit his literary purposes, and that's why they call it fiction.
But history is filled with examples of leaders becoming more than mere mortals in the public's eye.
Well, there was a long-standing tendency to make your heroes into gods, so this wasn't anything new. There were other world heroes that became gods. You know, attempts had been made to make Alexander the Great a god, or any of these other famous people.
So perhaps the painting merely drives home Washington's godlike reputation among Americans at the time. But the same can't be said for the artist's subjects surrounding him.
He's accompanied